Hold on, boys and girls. We're going all the way in on this one. Because the truth is, a hot dog and a warm honey glazed donut could have taught us more about human anatomy than the entire sex education curriculum for Gen X. Gen X sex ed wasn't education. It was a hostage situation. We were trapped in a windowless room that smelled more like floor wax and shimmering rage of a man who would rather be coaching varsity than explaining puberty. Most generations get the talk. We got the threat. We were told our bodies were ticking biological STDs, and if we so much as looked at a member of the opposite sex with anything more than professional courtesy, our lives would end in a flurry of antibiotic creams and social exile. Welcome to the 80s. Put your lunch away, because you're not going to want it after the slides. Let's talk about that Kodak Carousel. Remember the sound of that humming fan? That was the sound of our innocence being fed into a wood chipper. Our teacher, let's call him Coach Gruntington, didn't use a textbook. He used a series of 35 millimeter slides that looked like they were curated by a serial killer. These were not medical diagrams. They were crime scene photos from a planet where nobody owns soap. Editor Rob here. I needed to get the slides. Word of advice: don't Google that shit. I absolutely will not be having pepperoni pizza or a ham sub for supper tonight. Click. Here's a blister that looks like a topographical map of hell. Click. This is what happens if you hold hands in a dark room. Click. Oops. That's Coach's vacation photos from Florida. My bad. It didn't teach us how things worked. They showed us the aftermath of what happened when things went wrong. It was the scared straight of genitals. We didn't leave the class knowing about biology. We left knowing that our crotches are basically biohazards waiting to be triggered by a slow dance in the gym. And who was the messenger for this enlightened gospel? A man who spent 90% of his day blowing a whistle at children in short shorts that we all knew was never even married. My health teacher taught reproduction with the same grace he used to explain the prevent defense. He looked at the diagram of a female reproductive system like he was trying to decipher wiring schematics for a 1974 Chevy Nova. I'm convinced he thought the uterus was the penalty box. He'd stand there with his wooden pointer, a literal stick, pointing at a chalkboard like he was trying to kill a spider. This is the thingy. Don't touch it. It's foul. 10-yard penalty. Go run some laps. We were being taught that the most intimate act in human existence by a guy whose only relationship with intimacy was a deep spiritual connection to a clipboard. And then came the metaphors. The sticky cupcake, the licked lollipop, the unrolled tape. They told the girls that they were like a fresh cupcake. If everybody touches it, then nobody wants it. Think about the psychological wreckage of telling a 12-year-old girl she's a baked good, whose only value is her shelf life. Meanwhile, they told the boys, well, they didn't tell us shit. They just looked at us like we're rabid dogs that needed to be kept in a cage until we were 30. The curriculum was a 3-step program of total failure. Don't do it. If you do it, you're a used piece of tape. If you survive it, your parents will find out via a shame signal sent directly to their rotary phones. It wasn't morality. It was property management. Gen X sex ed was 90% fear and 10% trying not to laugh every time the teacher said anything that sounded remotely sexual. This part gets harder. Nuclear meltdown. It becomes erect. Half the class goes into cardiac arrest. And then there was always that one kid that had to be sent to the hallway because he couldn't stop laughing. And the worst part is he wasn't wrong. We were 12. We weren't built for maturity back then. And since school was a complete wash, we turned to any other source of information available. Channel 99. Gen X is the only generation that learned autonomy through the veil of static and purple zigzags. We'd sit there at 1 a.m. squinting at that scrambled Playboy channel signal like we were trying to find a hidden image in a magic eye poster. What the hell was that? Well, I hope that was the arm of the chair because I'm feeling a little bit insecure right now. Is that an elbow or a breast? Well, I think it's a hurricane hitting a ham sandwich. Trying to learn about human connection through scrambled cable TV is like trying to learn how to fly a 747 by watching a bird get sucked into the jet engines. We weren't learning anything. We were hallucinating because the adults were silent. The truth came from the most unreliable sources on earth. One of them was a 14-year-old guy named Dave. And he lived in a trailer and he smoked Marlboro Reds. Dave was our oracle. Dave told us that if you drank enough Mountain Dew, it would shrink your swimmers and you'd be safe. Half of my grade was vibrating on yellow dye number 5 for 3 years because of that fact. Dave also told us that jumping jacks after the act would shake the system clear. Dave told us that 2 pairs of socks acted like a biological grounding wire. And we believed him. But why wouldn't we? Coach was busy showing us slides of herpes, and our parents were hiding in the kitchen, praying we would just disappear until we were married and not ask any questions. If you were lucky, your parents bought you the book. You know the one. It was usually written pre-1968 by a man named Abstinence, Dr. Abstinence or something like that, who had clearly never spoken to a woman in his life. It was all about blossoming and petals and the miracle of the garden. My mother handed me this book like she was handing me a live grenade. She dropped it on my bed and retreated out of that room like a feral raccoon caught in the pantry. No eye contact, no follow-up, just read this, don't ask questions, and for God's sakes, don't bring shame upon this house. So I read it. I learned a lot about horticulture. I learned absolutely shit about what to do when a girl actually talked to me. We laugh about the stuff now, but think about the damage. We were the latchkey generation. We were the independent. We were the feral. We were the cynical. But when it came to our own bodies, we were also the terrified. We grew up thinking that intimacy was a trap. We thought the human body was a biological landmine. Some of us didn't even know what a period was. They just thought they were dying. And then the adults around would just shrug and hand them a pile of chocolate. And that silence, that wasn't privacy. It was neglect. We were the blind leading the blind through a minefield. And the only map we had was a discarded Cosmopolitan magazine and a rumor about Cherry Coke. Look at us now. We're the parents now. We're the ones now sitting down and using actual words like consent and boundaries, and God forbid we actually use the medical names for our body parts. Our inner child is in the corner screaming at us, "Don't say that, you'll get sent to the hallway." But we do it because we know what it's like to live in the dark. We're the generation that has to break the cycle. Even if we feel like idiots doing it, and we're overcompensating because we were undereducated. We're boundary experts because we grew up with zero. So, to the coaches and the Barbaras and the Dr. Estines or Essence or whatever the hell his name was, and the creators of the sticky cupcake metaphor, thanks for nothing. You tried to scare us into being good, and all you did was make us weird. You turned a natural process into a horror movie, and then you wondered why we all end up cynical as hell. But hey, we survived it. We're Gen X. We're the generation that can fix a sink with a coat hanger and navigate a city with a paper map, and apparently teach yourselves how to be human beings despite your best efforts to stop us. All right, so you survived this one. Now it's your turn. What's the absolute dumbest fact that you learned in health class? Was it the Mountain Dew? Was it the jumping jacks? Or did you have a teacher who tried to explain anatomy using a sock puppet? Drop it in the comments. I want to know I wasn't the only one being gaslit by a man in a polyester tracksuit. Like the video, hit the bell. Or just ignore me and go back to your scrambled cable. I'll see you in the next one.